everybody. How you all doing? Happy Monday. And we're back with Wake Up America. And you guys know the drill. Every week, I bring an entrepreneur and I put them on the hot seat and we take them back to their younger years where they were facing their biggest struggles and challenges. And we talk to them about how they overcame it to become the successful entrepreneurs that they are today. And today I have Katie with me. Katie Romagnolo, how are you?
Hi, I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on here.
No, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Like we were talking about, it's needed. It's something that's not really talked about a lot. But, you know, like we were saying before, so many of us have that child, that wounded child that never got that certain need met or went through that certain trauma. And we carry it in our subconscious, and unconsciously, we either fall into situations that land us in that same. That's why we go into relationships. And even when they're not good, we're like, but this feels like home. Yep. And it's because of that inner child. And so sometimes we attract the things that we don't want. And not only that, we go searching that need in other people and things. And the truth is, it never gets filled.
Yeah,
that's what we're going to talk about today. So Katie, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and let's start with the story.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I am a mindset and performance coach in Kingston, Ontario area of Canada. I had started this journey as a coach. Really, I had absolutely no intention of working with clients and doing the work that I do in the earlier years of my life. I grew up in a really low income, kind of rough neighborhood within Calgary, Alberta. And it was really tough to become the person I am today without going through some of the struggles and things that happened along the way. I really credit kind of some of those struggles to why my impact with clients is even successful. But it was tough. There was a lot of gang activity. There was a lot of violence. My childhood home also had its challenges with violence and abuse. And it was a tough setting from every direction.
Okay, I'm going to get into that in 1 second. But first, I want to thank all my guests. Rich, thanks so much for hanging out with us. And, we appreciate your support so much because we want to do this and share this with others. We appreciate your support so that we can continue having guests on the show and doing what we do. And Katie, you were telling me about that, and I want to go in a little deeper because I want to talk about the situation that you were facing at school and then at home, because you're going through all these struggles. What were the struggles that you were going through, and what was your support?
Yeah, so I went to one of the worst rated high schools, and it was a space where, it wasn't the regular bullying that was going on. There was these groups that you kind of either fell into and became a part of to feel like you were a part of something, or you were really targeted. And the targeting was serious. I had friends that didn't come home from parties, people who were stabbed to death, people who overdosed. It was a regular occurrence. And it became so normal to be in that setting that when you'd come back from a weekend and somebody had died, there wasn't this whole counselor effect. It wasn't, what can we do to try and help and support what's going on in the students' minds? It was just, well, that happened and that happened again. And you went forward, and there was really no emotional support, quite honestly, at that point in my life.
Wow. And the terrible thing about this is that when the body is not supposed to be in that state of alert, when you're in flight or fight, and I'm sure that some of you have experienced fight or fight, like if someone gets in front of you, cuts you off in traffic, or a dog comes running towards you, and the gate is not closed. We've all had that experience. And what happens is your body gets flooded with all these chemicals. And this is to protect us, of course, from danger. But the thing that happens is when you're in this prolonged stress for, let's say, a period of time of after several days, your body cannot handle, and it doesn't know the difference between what is reality and your perception, because your prefrontal cortex, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's asleep. And what's taken over is the reptilian part of the brain. And that part of the brain is in alert, but it's not based on reality. It's based on chemicals.
Well, you exactly right. Beautifully said. And so many people are not aware of that. And the amygdala, right? So the amygdala is part of the brain that is responsible for how we perceive our feelings. So are our feelings even real? Is fear real? What's happening? It's
Exactly.
really complicated.
Well, that's the thing, that when, you had that experience and you've had it for a prolonged time, and let's say, I guess we're going to talk about your story, but you go on through life, you move on, you're in a better environment, you're married, you have a new boyfriend, you're in another town, and you think, out of sight, out of mind. But this is the beauty, what happens, because the mind keeps on recreating that scenario and pictures every scenario as a threat.
Yeah, exactly right. It attaches onto that moment. And that was my truth. So I found myself at 19 wanting to get away from this situation, wanting to become something in life. And I moved across the country to Toronto to, try and start something new, and worked hard, hustled, tried my best. But in my unconscious, I had so many things that were running that were telling me that I didn't deserve this, that I was still in danger, that I, needed to avoid certain things to stay safe. And it was wild stories that were just untrue.
Exactly. When we talked about fear, how sometimes the fear is worse than the actual thing that's behind the door. But, you don't know that, because what happens is you develop this disassociation.
Yeah.
You develop a disassociation in order to survive. It's what our body mechanism does in order to survive. But what happens is when that disassociation happens, we're lost.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know what we're experiencing on our inside, and we really don't know what's going on the outside. And it's so amazing. We talked about this, about being quantum computers and living in a quantum reality, because what is reality when you're living that, and you can almost lose your mind. So tell me what happened, because we're reaching that point. You thought, okay, I'm in a new city, I'm in a relationship, I love my husband. Boom.
Yeah. And then it all hit me. So I had thought for a long time, if I just put on this version of to the outside world of who I think I'm supposed to be successful, then naturally I'll fake it till I make it.
Exactly.
And it didn't happen. So what happened instead is I reached a certain point in my career as a real estate agent that I was successful technically on paper, but inside I felt like a disaster. I was driving home from appointments and crying in my car because I felt like such a failure. And I couldn't figure out why I had this debilitating amount of anxiety, and really, quite honestly, suffered in complete silence for a good number of years.
And it's crazy, because I've been through that experience as well, and I'm still getting over the effects of that. I'm still not completely over it either. And,
Mm-hmm.
and your mind plays tricks on you, and you're all completely alone. You don't know how to express to the outside world what you're going. And there's been points in times that I've actually thought, oh my God, is this what the Bible talks about? Is this what religion talks about? The heaven and hell? It all really exists in the mind, because it feels like an eternal hell. Like, I don't know about you, but I had mornings that I didn't want to get up. And I spent part of the day overcoming myself, overcoming my thoughts.
Yeah. And isn't that the biggest truth there is the hardest thing we do in life is overcome ourselves.
Yeah.
Overcome the people we think we are or supposed to be, or we're told we were supposed to be.
Yeah. And we're pretending to be, exactly, because we're trying to put a front. We're trying to pretend that everything's okay. Yeah. So what happened?
So I had no idea what was going on. I was in complete chaos within my mind, confused, wondering why I wanted something in life that would make me feel this way. That being sales, I thought, I can't do sales. Why am I doing this? It's putting myself out there too much. And I was forced to go to a real estate conference that I tried every trick to get out of, because what would happen for me when I was in a group of other successful people is it would trigger every worst thought I could possibly have about myself. And those thoughts were, hey, who are you to be here? You're nobody. You can't do anything right. You're too shy, all the things. And eventually I got to a point where, luckily, quite honestly, I was forced to go to this event. And I connected with a few trainers that really felt like I could tell them that I was struggling with anxiety. And those words, when I first said them out loud to a complete stranger, were filled with tears. I felt a huge amount of shame, because for me, anxiety was something that I thought, this makes me weak. And it wasn't. It was the one thing that made me strong, to have that much feeling behind all of my experiences. I just needed to let them out.
Exactly. Sometimes those repressed emotions are what eat us up inside and what create that reality.
Yeah.
And actually, we've said this before, but over 80% of disease starts like that. It starts with a repressed emotion because it's built up energy that we're storing inside. But what happens is that that energy turns negative. It's not positive energy. And so it affects our organs. We're organic beings. But, you know, I want to mention to teens before we continue the conversation, because right now in America, 35% of teens have experienced cyber abuse.
Yeah.
And are experiencing some form of PTSD, because when you have prolonged stress, when you're every day, whether you're in school and you experience bullying, or whether you're on the internet and you're experiencing cyberbullying, this is affecting your life to the point that you can't even realize why you're feeling so depressed, why you're isolating yourself, why you have all these negative thoughts. And it's just the brain in its primal way trying to protect us when it's actually hurting us in return. So what happened at this point? How did you start fixing and remedying? Because I know it's not, oh, I took a seminar and I feel great. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's starting steps, right? You show up at that first seminar, and then what speaks to you out of that. And for me, I had to really decipher what were my triggers. You know, in the moments when I was feeling those feelings, what was it that was actually happening in my mind? Was it real? Was it not? And I did a lot of unconscious work. So dealing with the memories and the beliefs and the experiences that I had legitimately had, but had attached and stored into my cellular memory. It was producing an effect later on in life that was unrealistic to what was really going on because of those real fight or flight symptoms that were happening. So unconscious work was where I made my breakthroughs, and really seeing what was going on behind the mask of who I was pretending to be.
Yeah, and you know, you said something that fascinates me, because I'm really interested in epigenetics. And what people don't understand is that our cell structures can be, recognified when we're in a state of flow, or we reach those states that are so elevated and high in vibration that you get in certain meditation practices. And you're able to regenerate your cells and your DNA. And this is why, you know, so many people, like, for example, if you go to Joe Dispenza, so many people have these miraculous recoveries because they're able to get in that state where you're able to recreate your system and regenerate your system. And it's kind of like a miracle.
Oh, it sure is a miracle. I mean, miracles come in moments, right? It's one of those things where if we don't believe there's anything different that can happen, then nothing different is going to happen.
Yes. Yes, so true. Whether you believe you can or you can't.
Right.
You know, it's so funny because I really feel that life is like a mind game sometimes. You know, it's I think that the video game happens here.
Yeah.
And what happens to most of us is getting to that moment of self-awareness, getting to that moment. That's why I call it Wake Up America, because it's the moment we wake up and we're like, wow, it's like seeing yourself for the first time.
Oh, so true. Yes.
Yeah. And what I want everyone to understand is that when you see yourself for the first time, it's not exactly what you think. And it's a little scary because, you know, what happens is we want to live in denial sometimes because we don't want to admit the reality that we're not in the life we want, that we're able to make a change and we choose not to make that change, that we stayed in this relationship too long, that we're in a job that we hate. That we're part of a society that we're unhappy with. We're unhappy with our bodies. We're unhappy with the way we handle things. And we don't want to admit it to ourselves sometimes. So when you get to that moment where life just hits you and says, you know what, you can't ignore it anymore. You can't, it keeps on bringing you, you know, it's like a different person, but it's the same situation. And every time it escalates a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a jackhammer effect, right? Do you really need to have that force in order for something to change? Humans, a lot of times, we do. We need that breaking point.
Yeah, we need to go through. It's the Kenzo versus the Satori. You learn through bliss, or you learn through suffering. And unfortunately, most of us learn through suffering. And I believe now, I used to think, why would we do that? Are we masochists? But I believe now it comes from our development. If in your development you had these needs, these traumas, then you keep on recreating that. So of course it makes sense. You know, it all makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. We attract into our lives the things we need to heal, right? So not that you're meant for this pattern and cycle of abuse and misery. It's that it's presenting over and over again with velocity each time because it's something that needs to heal, something that needs attention.
Yeah. So whenever something happens, I just want you all to think, okay, instead of thinking, why does this keep happening to me? Think, why does this keep happening to me? Okay, it's the state. It's become a state of observation instead of reacting. Become an observant of your feelings. So why am I in this situation? Why is this happening right now? Okay, what is this trying to teach me? If I've been in this situation before, what did I do? Why am I in this situation again? How can I change it? And if the situation has no remedy, then sometimes it's sad because we have to walk out of certain people's lives, and it doesn't matter if it's family, if it's a relationship, if it's work or love. It's not selfishness to put yourself first. I believe that's part of the lesson in life.
Yeah.
Learning.
It's those boundaries, right? Sometimes cutting somebody out is not cutting somebody out. It's a boundary around yourself.
Yeah, and we're afraid to create those boundaries because for that precise reason, I've been told many times, you're so selfish, but then again, the person that's asking this of you is the selfish one because they're asking something out of you. You are just making that decision to say no. It is your right as a human being. We come into this world alone, guys, and we die alone. And I don't care if someone's holding your hand. When you close your eyes, you leave alone. This is your journey. So make that, and we all have that intuition. We've been so conditioned to not listen to it. Because when you say, no, I don't think so. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. So we're like, okay, you do this a couple of times and your brain says, oh, okay, we're supposed to ignore ourselves. We're supposed to ignore ourselves and listen to them. And so you see what starts happening. And then we wonder why we're unhappy a couple of years later. And we don't realize that it's those little decisions. Every time you make that decision, every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you cross that boundary or you let someone cross your boundary, you're telling yourself, you're telling your brain, I'm not worthy. They are more important. That world out there is more important than this world in here. And then we wonder why people don't love us. And then we wonder why people leave us or why it don't work out.
And if life is a projection of everything that we are within us, Carl Jung, perception is projection. Everything that is inside of you or inside of me, I'm projecting out to the world for it to show me back who I really am.
Exactly. Continue.
Yeah. So who are you really, right? Around your amazing questions that are so on point. When you think about the situations that you're in that are legitimately hard and struggles that are happening, well, what does this have to do with you? Ask yourself, what does this have to do with me? What's actually going on here? What am I feeling in this situation that maybe needs some attention to heal from? Exactly.
And try to look at it more like a way of an opportunity instead of thinking in a negative way. Think, wow, I actually have control. Because when you say, damn, it's my fault. Because I was the excuse person till like 3 years ago. Everything was an excuse. Oh, it's because of it. But when you say, and it's the hardest thing in the world, wow, it's totally my fault. There's nothing I can say. There's no excuse. Then your brain changes because the brain wants to find solutions. It wants to help you. It wants you to win. It actually scares you because it thinks it's protecting you. It's just a dumb buddy you have. It's like you're having a dumb security guard. But he really wants to help you. So you have to help it because the minute that you ask the questions, the brain's like, oh my God, we have to figure this out.
Yeah.
We have to figure it out.
It's the monkey mind, the impostor syndrome. I hadn't heard that term before recent years. And I thought, imposter, who's the imposter here? And it's true. The one who's running the show, who is behind the scenes is actually an imposter many times, feeding you lies that have nothing to do with who you actually are, but it's a conditioning of what you're perceiving might be happening in a situation.
Exactly. And I know that, like, especially when you're young. I mean, when you're young, you're experiencing so many changes, and you perceive everything as a threat. How many times have you wanted to be a part of something, or do something, or even talk to someone, and you weren't able to because of this fear? And then add trauma and add everyday challenges in life, and it becomes almost unbearable. And it's part of the struggle. And I believe that that is the whole part of life. And so instead of looking at it as challenges, look at them as lessons. And look at life as kind of like Hollywood. Okay. If you don't like it, you know what? Change the set.
Yeah.
Start changing the set of your life. And how you do that, it starts with you.
Change your own story.
So what happened when you started changing your story?
I literally, my entire persona changed, quite honestly. I had people who met me who there was a period of time in which we weren't connected. So people who knew me before in my early 20s, and then people who knew me in my 30s. And I would get the comments over and over again of you're a completely different person. And at first I was so shocked by that comment, because I was feeling like, well, I don't want to be a different person. I just want to be me. Right. And the truth of the matter really was that the person I was before, when they knew me through struggle and trauma and all those negative thoughts, was not me. So I literally was a different person once I came into my true understanding of what I'm meant for and my passion in life and what I'm really capable of. And that was a different person. It was just the one who was lost. It wasn't a recreation.
Yeah. And it's so sad, because I really feel most of us walk through lives lost, because even when a certain part of your life is going okay, whether it's your spiritual life, you have a newfound faith, or you're participating in some practice that gives you peace, or whether it's, a career, or whether it's your love relationship, but that's just one aspect of you.
Yeah.
That's one aspect of you. And we're not one thing. We're mind, body, and soul beings. And all three of them have to be in harmony, have to be in sync for us to be able to feel fulfilled. That's why, we all search for happiness, but happiness is fleeting. The minute you buy that thing, whether it's the car, whether it's the necklace, whether it's the vacation, what happens? Whether it's the drink, whether it's the drug, the minute that second is gone, you're right back to where you were before. And actually, sometimes even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had the things at a certain point in my life. I thought that's what you did. You got the nice home, you drove the nice car, but I was the worst I had ever felt about myself in those years of my life. It's a testament that it does not do anything besides mask what's going on underneath.
Yeah. And so now, how is it different?
Everything is different. I feel like I'm comfortable in my own skin. I used to say I'm too shy to do things all the time. And I really never was too shy. I was just too self-conscious of who I thought I was showing up as. And
go ahead.
Just being able to release fear. So releasing the lies too of the fact that people who are successful don't feel nervous or afraid to do things. They do. They really do. And it's not about not being afraid and being fearless and all of that. It's about knowing how to walk through those steps of fear to get to where the good stuff is on the other side of that. The magic is in the moving through.
Exactly. It's true. And like what you were saying before, it's difficult, because when you're going through those changes, we become a little bit, when we think these things, we are a little paranoid. You're a little paranoid. And so you make everything bigger and you magnify. And like you said, the monster under the bed or behind the door is never what we think it is. The fear is always greater. And so I want to talk about a little bit about what you do, because I find it fascinating. And, I'm obsessed with quantum physics. So
yeah, me too. Oh my goodness. Quantum physics. Can we talk for another 4 hours about quantum physics? So I work with a practice that is called quantum change process, and it really is the thing that started the big shift in my life. Why I'm a practitioner of this work is because of my personal experience I had as a client doing that session. And essentially what we do is we discover the root cause of what has shown up as a pattern over and over and over again in life. And I showed up in my session as someone who was wondering, why do I feel this much anxiety? Why do I have anxiety? Right. And I ended up working through this session, going all the way back to being in my mother's womb. It was second trimester, and there was a lot going on in her life and our family dynamic at that time that literally anchored in within her emotional state into me as a live being within her. And it carried forward as a pattern unknowingly between the two of us and then other relationships going forward. It was really, really eye-opening what happened in that session.
Yeah. I'm so happy that we're becoming more aware of this, because I told you I had a similar experience. My mom almost had her finger cut off at 6 months, and they were missionaries in Colombia, and lived under constant stress, hunger, terrible conditions. And besides, my father and my mother had a horrible matrimony. So it was a horrible situation. I really believe that all that gets passed down because it's chemicals, and because, we're organic, we're sharing the same body at that time. And you carry that. And the funny thing is that, like we said, we're born into this world a blank slate. We have no memory of our past, neither the womb, neither our spirit beings, nothing. And it's a relearning. And some of us don't ever get to be able to figure out what those fears are. But now through practices like this, we do have solutions, and we're going to be able to do it.
So needed.
Right? It is so needed. And I'm so glad that the world is changing, and that we're being more open to these practices, and that we actually have the technology to be able to do it. And that all of us are, because I know that everyone says, and I know that we're in a really difficult time, but in spite of that, there are so many people that are waking up, because there are so many things available to us that we didn't have before. That it's opening our eyes, it's giving us options.
Didn't
have before.
And just for anyone who thinks that in order to have a better feeling state about where you are in your life, that you need to go through this whole transformation of being a different person, what story are you telling yourself in your head about how that happens? Because I guarantee you, it's probably not what you think. It never is. Nothing ever is what we make it out to be. So don't be hard on yourself ahead of time, right? This is my biggest thing that I did throughout my entire life, was I was so hard on myself before I even knew what was going to be hard or not.
Yeah. And then we're so hard on ourselves, and unconsciously we're hard on others, because the way we treat ourselves is the way we treat others. And we don't understand sometimes why we do the things we do.
Yeah. And it's something that gives us compassion for others too, right? When you can understand that how we're treating others, really think about, maybe how your parents have treated you, or how a bully has treated you. What about that scenario maybe shows how much pain or hurt that person has come through in their life, that is coming out through how they're now hurting people, because they don't know how to interact any other way on a deep level.
Exactly. They're hurting too. Yeah. So I know that we had talked about doing a little bit of a ending with your practice. So I would really love to give that a try, if you don't mind.
Yes. Yeah. So what I would like to do with you is what I call the 1-minute movie. This is a very, very simple NLP tool. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, which just has to do with the mind and the body and the way that we show up through our habits. So programming being repetitive processes we do, right? So let's do a process that is for the better rather than what might be running.
Perfect.
So what we're going to do, I'm going to actually have you do this along with me. If you are watching, do this along with us. Powerful, powerful step. So the 1 minute movie is all about utilizing visualization. There are a lot of studies that show that people who visualize themselves doing something will have far better results than someone who just even practiced physically. Okay, there's a huge amount of momentum that you build within an energetic sense. So what we're going to do is you're going to think about something maybe that causes you a little bit of anxiety, something you're nervous about, something that gives you the not so good feeling state, something you don't want to be focusing on, but you just kind of can't help it. Maybe it's a interview, maybe it's a phone call you have to have, maybe it's a family member and a conversation that you need to have around boundaries because they are affecting you negatively, perhaps. Okay, so I want you to think about where your focus is going to be. Pick out a scenario, something that's been bothering you. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have you close your eyes with me. Okay, so as you close your eyes, what you want is you want to imagine the best possible outcome for this particular scenario to happen for you. Whatever conversation, event, meeting, whatever it is for you, imagine that you're actually there in that moment and this is happening for you in vivid color. This is an amazing conversation that is going exactly how you need it to. You're feeling wonderful. I want you to really, really amplify this feeling for you. Imagine how you'll feel. What is in the room around you? Or are you outside? Is there any sights or smells? Do you got it? Do you got that perfect scenario? Imagining that it's happening. And what we want to do is we want to run this for a minute. Okay, so we want to actually imagine what it's going to be like that day that this is going on. Is there somewhere you need to drive to? Is there a phone you need to pick up? Is there a computer involved? What are the steps that are happening right before this amazing result of what it is that you're feeling, some anxiety or tension or anything around? So we want to flip that feeling, okay? And you're just going to imagine that these steps are happening. And we're going to do a short version of this one today, but you're going to make sure that you're doing that for a minute straight. And this is through your own eyes. We're not going to disassociate here, right? Looking through your own eyes, this is happening within your visual memory. It's anchoring in. Okay, and then I want you to come back to now when you're ready, when you feel like you've solidified that feeling. Open your eyes. Excellent. Nice job. And let me tell you why this works, okay? So this is something that I highly, highly suggest doing right before sleep. Anyone who's having a little trouble sleeping or feels like you're waking up with thoughts that are racing, this is highly effective. It allows for you to put your brainwaves into a state that are allowing for deep rest. It's kind of pulling yourself down. It's almost like a hypnosense. And those brainwaves really allow for more information to soak in. So it's amplifying your message that this is happening. It's happening in the best possible way. And sometimes I'll use this really, like you really want to amplify this to the extreme. So if I've got a speaking engagement, I'm going to be standing on a big stage and there's a ton of people. I'm imagining them cheering and throwing roses and like it's blown out, right? It's not going to necessarily happen that way, but that's the feeling I want, right? We capture the feeling. And yeah, so how was that for you?
That was awesome. That was great. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for coming on the show. I really had a great time with you, and I hope.
Thank you so much, because I'm so excited about even some further talks that we're going to have. We're going to dive even deeper to some of this stuff and the really good stuff behind the scenes here.
Yes, the next time we come on, we're going to do it a second time, and we're going to go in really deep into what the quantum field is, into what quantum healing is, and how to be able to get over and heal these emotions like that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to take a lifetime.
It doesn't have to take a lifetime. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And till the next time, I want you all to live legendary.